Okay, great. So I've just started recording. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome again to the first TUG webinar, How to Be Social Whilst Keeping Your Distance. I'm Emily King, Commercial Director at TUG, and today we're going to be talking to you about why it's so important to be building your brand on social right now and how to get the tone right during the coronavirus crisis. So for those of you that don't know us, we're TUG. We're a digital performance marketing agency with offices in London, Berlin, Sydney and Toronto. So to quickly run you through the agenda for today's webinar, firstly, Emily Knox, our Head of Social and Content, will be talking you through her coronavirus social media best practices, content pillars and watchouts. And then Asha Gordon, our Head of Paid Media, will present the current landscape of social advertising and what the opportunity is for brands at this time. Finally, at the end, hopefully we'll have 5 minutes for questions. So please do keep your microphones on mute throughout the webinar, but if you do have a question, then please type it into the chat and we'll do our best to answer. So now I'll hand you over to Emily Knox.
Hello, thank you so much, Emily, and thanks everyone who's joined us today. My name's Emily Knox. I am the Head of Social and Content at TUG. And I've put together this social media handbook for the coronavirus crisis over the last couple of weeks as I've watched what brands are doing in the wake of this upheaval, who's stepped up and who's dealt badly with the situation, and what we can all learn from that as social media marketers. So first I'd like to take you through some good news stories, some brands who are doing really great work. And just a reminder, a few people have just joined us. We are recording this webinar. So first one, Joe Wicks. I think he's already a fairly well-known fitness influencer, but he's come to real national prominence recently by doing daily live YouTube PE lessons for kids. It's such a great example of using your brand purpose for good and stepping up with content which is providing genuine help, both to bored kids and also frustrated parents. Next, BrewDog are a brand that's very well known for their punk attitude to marketing, and they're never shy of a PR opportunity. But they've really stepped up in this crisis by turning over their distillery to the production of hand sanitizer, which is very famously at low supply at the moment. Although the product is heavily branded, they won't be selling it, but they're giving it away to the most vulnerable, which I think is a really nice touch. Next, Shed Aquarium in Chicago were, like so many businesses, forced to close during the lockdown, but they're making the most of it by letting their penguins roam free and visit their other enclosures, and they've streamed it all live on social media, much to the delight of their fans. I think fun behind the scenes content is always a social media winner, but when millions of people are stuck at home watching frightening news updates, it can be a real beacon of hope and a welcome distraction. And lastly, Bread Ahead is a real cult bakery in London. They're based in Borough Market. And again, they've, like so many businesses, been forced to shut due to the coronavirus. So as well as shifting their business to online deliveries, they've also begun broadcasting baking tutorials via Instagram Live every day at 2 p.m. People have been tuning in, I've seen, from as far away as Japan to get the kitchen secrets of London's best bakers. And I think what a good way to build reach, affinity and goodwill, as well as fulfilling people's desire to learn new skills while they're stuck indoors. So these are just a few examples of brands that I think are doing a really good job in the midst of a crisis. For more examples, you can check my Twitter feed at hello_Emily or check the TUG blog. I've been curating a huge list of my favorite brands who are doing really nice content during coronavirus. Now, there are, of course, some brands which have fallen foul of public sentiment in the last few weeks. So here are a few of the bad examples. 163 people complained to the UK's Ad Standards Authority about the use of KFC's slogan, "Finger licking good," as it breached public health advice to practice good hygiene and avoid touching your face. KFC have now paused all use of the slogan, which actually dates back to the 1950s for the foreseeable future. I think this is a great reminder for all brands. Check your scheduled activity to ensure it reads as well during coronavirus as it might have in January or February. And I think this is the best of all days to give this reminder, as it is April Fool's. So I haven't seen any pre-planned April Fool's content go out yet, and hopefully I won't as the day goes on. Sports Direct has come under a lot of scrutiny for their offline decision to keep stores open despite the health fears of their staff and also advice from the government. And so I think we need to remember social media can amplify your actions, especially during a crisis, and the public will remember how you behaved a long time after the lockdown is lifted. And this long-term memory is being aided by websites like didtheyhelp.com, which have sprung up in the last few days, and they're acting as a database of all the actions, both good and bad, which companies took during this crisis. And that's going to enable consumers to make informed purchase decisions in the future. Hashtag boycott Weatherspoons was trending all day last week after CEO Tim Martin's fairly ill-advised social media video address to all his sacked workers that they should try and get a job at Tesco to make ends meet. It was an incredibly insensitive message at a time of great anxiety, and it certainly didn't do anything for any feelings of goodwill towards the pub chain. And it's a lesson in how not to run your corporate comms in a time of crisis. And lastly, this is quite an odd one, where a Twitter account claiming to be Extinction Rebellion East Midlands declared that Corona is the cure and humans are the disease, and appeared to show stickers and flyers saying the same posted around neighbourhoods. This was actually refuted eventually by XR's main account, who decried the message as eco-fascism and claimed that the XR East Midlands was not an official XR Twitter account. But by then, a lot of the damage had been done in terms of reach from retweets and comments to that original tweet and the conversation around it. And I think it serves as a lesson to be really aware and quick to act in cases of fake news and rumours on social media, which just explode. And I'm sure we've all seen them at this time of health crisis. So we've looked at some of the good and some of the bads, but what can we take away from all of this as social media marketers? I think there's no denying that coronavirus is changing our lives in really unprecedented ways. A lot of this is negative. There's the health impact, lives are being lost, there's a huge toll on our NHS and frontline workers, as well as the financial impact and behaviours like panicking and stockpiling, which are not helping. But we can't deny there's lots of positive stories coming to light as well. There's so many acts of care, generosity, instances of individuals and people using their resources to do one of three things: help their communities, hustle by pivoting their offerings to align with the requirements of staff and customers, and providing hope by sharing positivity, motivation, and good news as a beacon of light in the dark. And these should be the basis of your coronavirus content pillars. Help means demonstrating how your business is helping. Always start with how you're looking after your own staff, how you're looking after customers, and also how you're looking out for the most vulnerable people in the community at the same time. Hustle means show how you've changed your offering or how your existing offering is really well poised to deliver a service people need right now, and let people support you by showing them how you can support their new way of living during this lockdown. And hope means remember that people are anxious, scared, they're bombarded on a daily basis with grim news. So providing well-judged humour, entertainment, educational material and content which motivates can be extremely well received at these times. And finally, from me, I just want to take you through some watch outs from those brands that haven't exactly covered themselves in glory during the last few weeks. I would say, don't forget that the world has changed. Almost every aspect of our lives have been affected by this virus. Work, leisure, relationships, fitness, the way our communities work. It's really important that you acknowledge this if you're creating content or running ads. Content which might have worked well in January may not resonate now. So rethink any content which might feature people engaged in activities which are now not possible, or socializing in groups, for example. It's not business as usual. Many people have sick loved ones. Many are worried about their own health. A lot of people have been furloughed or simply sacked. So read the room. Make sure you check all content you have ready to go out for tone and messaging. For example, I think anything too celebratory at the moment would be tone deaf. And in a time of crisis, remember to communicate all the good your company is doing, looking after your teams, your customers, your community. What you do now will resonate beyond this virus, so ensure your audience comes away with positive memories. And on this final note, I'd like now to hand over to Asher Gordon, who is our head of paid at Tug, and he's going to take you through what you need to know about social media advertising during the coronavirus pandemic.
Thank you, Emily. Hi, everyone. I'm Asher. I'm the head of paid media here at Tug. I work across paid social and also PPC and display. In my presentation, I'm going to run through why now is the best time to test, why and what audiences to build in the short term, and how and why we should be monitoring competitors. Let's start with why now is the best time to test. Now that millions of people are confined to their homes, all social networks are seeing increases in users, time on site, and engagement. Since they're not in the office, not commuting, they've got more of a free rein to actually watch videos and play with the sound on. This, coupled with a lot of advertisers pulling back, means now it costs a lot less to reach more people in social. Looking at stats from YouGov and our internal data, we've seen over a 20% increase in users on social platforms. Engagement rate is as high as 15%, and huge CPC reductions of 30%. As we showed on the previous slide, with users having more time to engage, they are more likely to invest time to read or watch the stories that you put out about your brand. Now is the time to tell your story to gain more followers and engagement, and even encourage more user-generated content in order to get your message out there. Users are more likely to share content of brands that are doing a good service in these testing times, like restaurants offering discounts to key workers and Nike pushing that stay-at-home message. Other brands are even using this time to test longer form videos that explain their key messages in more detail, like this masterclass example, where they're promoting a 2-minute video, which would normally be discouraged on social because best practice is typically either 10 to 15 seconds. Nextdoor and TikTok are just starting to monetize their platforms fully in the UK. We've actually got close relationships with those platforms and are even a beta advertiser on TikTok. I know you're seeing loads of these platforms in the press quite often, leading to more people using them. It's definitely time to invest in them now. It's very hard to escape TikTok at the moment. You can create short, creative, music-filled videos, and you can look at current events and trending challenges as well. There's even a bit of a kick-up challenge using toilet paper, although I've only got to 2 kick-ups at the moment, so I won't be sharing that yet. Nextdoor is also a social media network, but it's more for local communities and boroughs. You can connect to people in your neighborhood, and that could be between 100 to 3,000 households. It's great for checking in on vulnerable neighbors and sharing information during this pandemic, and the hyper-targeted ads work really well on this platform. House Party also deserves an honorable mention because last week it had 2 million downloads, which is massive. It's a video chat platform where you can drop in on friends, play games together, and where people tend to go, advertising does tend to follow. Even though more people are spending time on social, you're probably going to see longer lead times from first interaction to sale. Now's the time to build those audience lists and make sure you're ready to go once demand begins to grow. Users are not really buying those non-essential items at the moment, or items that are not for home entertainment. So now we're seeing that drop in auction competitiveness. You want to make sure you're spending more now to see your spend go further. It's a good time to plan for your upper funnel metrics. You're looking for people to engage in your ads, watch your videos, and visit your site. You're going to be pushing out messages consistent with brand awareness and segmenting users that are showing different levels of interest. This is where you really want to start constructing bespoke custom audience lists, which are key to efficiency when you're running paid social campaigns. If you've seen users before, you can tailor messaging and creative to make sure that you're increasing your likelihood of sales. You should separate these users that have engaged with your ad previously, users that have purchased before, and users that have landed on specific landing pages on your website. And with that, you can create lookalike lists, which are very valuable for your paid social campaigns. Finally, monitoring consumer and competitor behavior will give you a heads up when high levels of demand return. We will all start to see consumer behavior change as we slowly return back to normality. This is a Google Trends example of how restaurant searches fell off sharply once they closed when the lockdown started to happen. We will see the opposite effect in future. You'll see a shift in searches, competitor messaging, press coverage, and even conversion rates on your website as well. Google Alerts send you notifications on press releases and coverage of your chosen topic. As you can see, I've set up an alert to find out when the toilet paper shortage is over. Seriously though, it's imperative that we're looking at competitors and staying ahead of the changes in the market before anyone else does. Setting up Google Alerts, checking search trends, industry press, and competitor monitoring tools will help ensure that you can gain the first mover advantage in the auction before advertisers begin to flock back. You can also learn and adapt based on what competitors are doing and implement strategies that improve on what they're doing as well. Just to summarize, I recommend using this time to test and learn different formats and platforms so you can upskill before there are higher barriers to entry. Build your audience list now because it will be cheaper and worthwhile. In the future, you'll have ready-made targeting and messaging. And monitor your industry and competitors closely. This will ensure that you don't get left behind when consumers start buying those non-essential products again. Thank you everyone for your time. I'll hand back to Emily King now.
Okay, so thanks very much, Emily and Asher. That was great. Does anyone have any questions? If you do, please type them into the chat now. I think I've just seen one, so I'll check. Okay, so I've got a question here from Olivia. So she says, for companies that sell their products online, what's the best way to approach sales messages in order to encourage people to buy while still being sensitive and not looking to profit from the circumstances? Emily, are you okay to take this question?
Yeah, sure. I think it's a question a lot of companies are asking at the moment, whether it's about sales or whether it's about charities taking online donations. And I think sales messages, like any other messages at the moment, need to be measured and they need to be presented with sensitivity. And I think more than ever, approach sales messages and all messages from the point of view of the benefit to the consumer. So how will this make their life easier? I think it's also a good time to potentially remind the end consumer how hard your team are working to bring you these products and services to those people who really need them. And of course, you can also pair any sales messages with any other messages that you might have about how your company's engaged in any charitable activities, particularly around COVID at the moment, to remind them about the good that you're doing as well. But I think if you present sales messages in a balanced and sensitive way, there is a lot of sensitivity in the public around, people want to support business. They want to support the economy. They understand that business is struggling. So I think it's not about causing sales messages, but just getting the tone right.
Okay, great. Thank you, Emily. Great answer. The next question, so from Catherine, what would you recommend for events companies to be doing on social when we have no idea when we'll be able to start running our events again? Great question. Asher, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, that is a great question. Thank you for asking me that. So as I mentioned before, you want to start looking at more top of funnel metrics. So if you have no idea when you're going to go back live again, start looking at getting people to register their interest, so you can start retargeting them later when you are back online. What you can also do is start to either sell vouchers or for performances a long time in the future, and just make sure that there's an opportunity for flexibility and there's no charges for cancellations or for moving the performances later if we're still seeing signs of this pandemic in the longer term future as well.
Okay, great. Another question's just come in from Gabriella. She says, what content / ads would you recommend for travel companies during this time? I guess that one's for you, Asher, since it mentions ads as well.
Yes, definitely. So I feel like that's what you need to do during this time, is to think about your consumer and think about their needs. As Emily says, companies that are putting the consumer first and then showing messaging that resonates with them and understands the situation is always going to resonate really well. For travel companies, again, some companies are looking to sell holidays in 2021, a long term in the future, and they are still taking bookings. Again, you need to make sure you're pushing that message around flexibility around bookings, no cost for cancellations or moving your bookings in the future, and just making sure you're just keeping an eye on what's going on and changing messaging based on what government recommendations and restrictions are as well.
Okay, great. Thanks, Asher. Does anyone have any more questions? No. Okay. Cool. Well, just to finish up, so we are offering free Q&A sessions with Emily or Asher to all of you guys, to give you the opportunity to ask any more questions that you might have, and also get some advice on how you should be planning and executing your social media strategy in the current climate. If you are interested in setting up a session, please email me, emily.king@tugagency.com, and I'll be happy to arrange that for you. Please also just drop me a message after this if you would like us to share the webinar recording with you. So on that note, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us this afternoon, and have a lovely afternoon. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.